Welcome to the Deep Dives, where we tear through the research, the dense financial filings, and all that context to deliver the key insights straight to you. Our goal is to make sure you get a really deep understanding of complex topics, and fast.
And today we are, I think, embarking on a really fascinating deep dive. It's an area that is absolutely foundational to our future, but is, almost invisible to most people.
Right.
We're talking about the literal physical infrastructure that supports science and technology. I mean, if you think about any major breakthrough, a new gene therapy, AI hardware, that discovery needed a home, a very specialized home.
Exactly. We tend to think of innovation as this abstract thing that happens in the cloud or in someone's head.
Yeah.
But it's completely reliant on brick-and-mortar reality. And the company we're focusing on today basically provides that reality.
That company is Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Inc., or R.
Now, when you hear real estate investment trust, your eyes might glaze over a little. You might just file it away as background noise. But this company is, it's a whole different animal.
It really is. So our mission today is to go way past that simple definition of a REIT and really examine how this company's highly specialized, deeply strategic investment model actually shapes the speed and direction of innovation itself.
And the sources we're using for this dive give us a great overview. We're drawing on their 2024 financials, a breakdown of their strategic locations, and a really fascinating look at who their tenants actually are.
This is all about how physical strategy dictates scientific possibility.
And here is I think, the most essential thing to grasp right from the start. RE is not investing in, your typical commercial real estate. They don't own strip malls or downtown office towers.
No, not at all. Their portfolio is almost exclusively specialized office buildings and laboratories. These are high-spec, incredibly complex facilities that are designed and leased for one purpose.
For the life science and technology industries, they are, and this isn't an exaggeration, they are the landlords of modern discovery.
It really forces you to redefine what critical infrastructure even means in the 21st century. We're used to thinking of, power grids or bridges.
Sure.
But what about the secure, high-capacity lab where a major discovery is made or where a billion-dollar drug is developed? That physical space is, I would argue, just as critical to our future economic and public health, and their whole structure is built on understanding that.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's get right down to the foundation. What exactly is Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Inc.? How does its basic structure support this hyper-specialized mission?
Well, at its financial core, REVETS operates as a real estate investment trust, a REIT. It's based in Pasadena, California.
And for anyone who's a bit fuzzy on what a REIT is.
It's basically a company that owns and often finances income-producing real estate. The whole structure gives them certain tax advantages, but the main rule is they have to distribute most of their income, at least 90%, to their shareholders as dividends.
So it's designed for stable, predictable income?
Exactly, which is why they're so attractive to investors looking for that kind of dividend income. And R is a big one. It's publicly traded on the NYSE, ticker is R, and it's a component of the S&P 500. This is a very established, very large company.
But why is that REIT structure, the one focused on dividends, so perfect for owning a portfolio of incredibly expensive labs? Why not just a normal corporation?
It all comes down to the leases. The leases are everything in this space. I mean, think about it. Building a high-containment biosafety level lab or installing floors that don't vibrate for sensitive microscopes.
It's a huge upfront cost.
A massive capital expenditure. So because of that cost and all the customization, life science leases are typically very, very long. We're talking 10, 15, sometimes 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And that long-term, stable, predictable income stream is the perfect match for the REIT mandate. They get this reliable cash flow that they can then distribute to investors. They don't have to worry about the constant churn you see in standard office space.
And that stability comes from experience. They were founded back in January 1994. So as of 2025, that's 31 years they've been in this very specific game?
31 years. They've navigated economic booms, crashes, multiple biotech cycles. It really proves their investment thesis is durable.
And that durability comes from that focus you mentioned. They are strictly in the business of office buildings and labs for life science and tech tenants. They're not dabbling in retail or anything else.
No, it's a strategic concentration.
Yeah.
And it means their fate is, well, it's completely tied to the health and the funding of the life sciences sector.
Now, here's a detail I found really interesting. It speaks to their whole philosophy. The company is named after Alexandria, Egypt. And that's not a random choice.
Not at all. It's a powerful, very intentional name. It's meant to signal a deep connection to not just history, but to historical intellectual achievement.
So you mean like the Library of Alexandria?
Exactly. Ancient Alexandria was the undisputed scientific capital of the Hellenistic world. It was a hub for fundamental discovery in math, astronomy, and crucially, in medicine.
So by picking that name, they're signaling that they're not just collecting rent, they're trying to build a modern ecosystem for discovery to create that same kind of intellectual gravity.
Precisely. They are branding themselves as the physical home for world-changing ideas. And this whole philosophy connects directly to their most important business strategy, the adjacency model.
Or what we can call their location strategy. This is key. They don't just build labs anywhere.
No. The core strategy, and it's very explicit in their materials, is locating properties immediately adjacent to or very near major world-class universities and research institutions.
Why? To attract the best tenants.
To attract the highest quality, research-focused tenants, yes. They are placing their infrastructure right next to the gravitational pull of academic talent and, very importantly, federal funding.
So it's about more than just hiring interns from the university next door.
Oh, much more. Universities provide the foundational research that fuels commercial innovation. They create a constant pipeline of new talent, and they're the starting point for so many spin-off companies.
Right, the next big biotech startup could come right out of a university lab.
And by locating right there, RE ensures their tenants have immediate access to all of it. The talent, the collaboration, sometimes even shared equipment. It's about maximizing efficiency and, scientific serendipity.
Let's talk a little more about the buildings themselves. You mentioned the high costs. What makes an RE lab so different from a standard office building?
This is why we use the term critical infrastructure. We're talking about technical specs that you would just never find in a normal building. For instance, air handling. The HVAC systems are enormous and complex, designed for specific biosafety levels.
To prevent contamination.
Exactly. They might require 10, 15, or even more air changes per hour. That requires huge mechanical floors and specialized ductwork that costs a fortune.
And the physical structure itself.
Vibration control is a huge one. If you're using a super-sensitive electron microscope, a truck driving by outside could ruin your experiment.
I never would have thought of that.
So RE builds these heavy-duty, reinforced concrete structures with specialized floor plates to dampen any vibration. And then there's power. They need high-redundancy power systems, backup generators, secondary feeds. Losing power for an hour could destroy millions of dollars of research.
So a standard office building just can't be converted easily.
Not even close, which is why RE's properties are so essential and so expensive.
And we can see this strategy perfectly in their flagship properties. The scale is just staggering. In Manhattan, they have the Alexandria Center for Life Science. It's, over 740,000 square feet?
A massive scientific hub right in the middle of one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world, and it's right next to institutions like NYU Langone and Rockefeller University.
But that's almost small compared to their presence in Boston.
Oh, yeah. Greater Boston, specifically Cambridge, is the global epicenter for biotech. There, they own the Alexandria Center at Kendall Square, which is an enormous 2.3 million square feet.
2.3 million.
It's basically an innovation city within a city sitting right next to MIT.
And that's not all. They also own Technology Square nearby in Cambridge, another huge asset at almost 1.2 million square feet.
Right, so when you add those up, you realize RR isn't just a landlord in these areas. They are a foundational piece of the physical landscape of American science.
And their involvement goes even deeper than just the buildings. They have a venture capital arm.
Yes, Alexandria Venture Investments. This is a key detail that moves them way beyond being a simple landlord.
They invest directly in these emerging life sciences firms.
It's a brilliant strategic move. It creates this circular economy. By investing directly, they get equity in a company that, if it succeeds, will eventually need huge amounts of lab space.
They're funding their own future tenants.
They're funding their future tenants. A small biotech gets seed money from them. It moves through clinical trials. It needs to expand. Who are they going to lease from? It's an established relationship. It's an internal pipeline that minimizes their own leasing risk.
But that specialized focus, as smart as it must come with a major risk. And the company's pretty open about this.
They are. Their critical dependency stems directly from this niche. The company is highly, highly dependent on the overall stability and, crucially, the funding environment of the life sciences industry.
So if venture capital dries up or if the FDA starts rejecting a bunch of new drugs,
Their tenant base suffers, their ability to raise rents suffers. It's a direct impact.
and it's even more specific than that. Because they're located near these big universities, they're dependent on funding for research from the United States government. This is where politics and property really intersect.
That's the crux of it. When we say federal funding, we're mostly talking about the budget for organizations like the National Institutes of Health, the NIH.
Right.
NIH grants are the lifeblood of academic research. That research gets licensed to commercial tenants, and it also directly funds a lot of government-adjacent research. So if a political shift leads to major cuts in the federal research budget,
It directly impacts the financial stability of their tenants.
many of their tenants, and even the government itself. It connects the financial success of this massive real estate company directly to the, at times, volatile political decisions made in Washington. It's a tangible sign of how intertwined private scientific infrastructure is with public funding.
So let's shift to the sheer scale of this operation, the geographic footprint. The numbers here are they're massive. As of the end of 2024, are owned or had investments in 391 properties.
Containing a total of 44.1 million square feet.
44 million. Can you put that in perspective for us?
Well, 44 million square feet is, it's roughly the equivalent of 9 Empire State Buildings. But instead of offices, it's all spread out across these highly specialized, technologically complex labs.
Well,
And while they don't chase the sheer size of, say, a massive industrial REIT, they absolutely dominate their niche. And if you look at the location data, it's clear they are executing a very deliberate strategy.
you can see where the R&D capital is flowing.
Exactly. It's not a scattered portfolio. It's highly, highly concentrated. And looking at their top 10 revenue markets really tells the story of where the center of gravity is in the life sciences world today.
Let's do that because the dominance of the top three is really the headline here.
It absolutely is. They function as the central nervous system of the entire company.
So, number one, Greater Boston, which of course includes Cambridge, that accounts for a colossal 36% of their 2024 revenue.
36% Boston, anchored by MIT, Harvard, all the big teaching hospitals. It's just unmatched globally for biotech density. For RE to have over a third of its revenue coming from that one regional cluster, that shows you everything about their conviction.
It's their most critical bet.
By far. It has the highest barrier to entry, the most expensive labor, and the highest concentration of R&D funding.
Okay, then coming in second is the San Francisco Bay Area. That makes up 21% of their revenue.
Right. And the Bay Area brings in that crucial crossover with technology. It's where traditional biotech meets the immense capital and computing power of Silicon Valley.
So, a different flavor of research.
A slightly different flavor. You see more computational biology, genomics, and a lot of AI-driven drug discovery there. It's a perfect complement to Boston's more traditional pharmaceutical heritage.
And number three on the list is San Diego, accounting for 16%.
San Diego has always been a really strong, specialized hub. It's particularly known for genomics, diagnostics, medical devices. It's all clustered around institutions like UC San Diego and the Salk Institute. It gives them that third critical anchor on the West Coast.
So if you just do the quick math, Boston, the Bay Area, and San Diego, those three markets alone account for a massive 73% of ARE's total revenue.
73%. That is an enormous concentration.
It's the whole strategy in one number.
It is. It's a calculated, high-conviction bet. They are saying, we will put our incredibly expensive infrastructure exactly where the top talent and the top institutions already are. They are not speculating on what the next hub might be. They are doubling down on the current ones.
But I have to ask, isn't that a huge vulnerability? To have almost 3/4 of your income tied to just three hyper-expensive coastal regions. What about concentration risk?
That is the essential challenge to the model. And the risks are real. I mean, geographically, you have environmental risks. Think about coastal flooding in Boston or seismic risk in California affecting these incredibly sensitive labs.
And economically.
They are highly exposed to wage inflation and labor costs. When the cost of living skyrockets in San Francisco, it drives up operating expenses for every single one of their tenants, which can put pressure on them.
And what about the political side? They're reliant on the regulatory environments in California and Massachusetts.
Absolutely. Those states tend to have stricter labor laws, more complex permitting processes than, say, a newer market in the middle of the country.
So what's the bet they're making?
The bet is that the intellectual gravitational pull of MIT, Harvard, and Stanford is so powerful that no amount of increased cost or regulation will make a major pharmaceutical company leave. They are betting that the need for collaboration and talent outweighs the economic benefits of moving somewhere cheaper.
Okay, so let's look at the other markets. The remaining 27%. Where is that distributed?
Right. So after the big three, we see Maryland coming in at 7%, and that's vital because of its proximity to Washington, D.C.
In all the federal research institutions.
Not just the NIH, which provides the grants, but also the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Being close to the regulators is crucial for many of these companies.
Then we have the Research Triangle in North Carolina, which accounts for 6%.
Another major academic cluster anchored by Duke, UNC, and NC State. A very well-established hub.
Seattle is next at 5%.
Seattle is a bit like the Bay Area. It benefits from that strong tech sector crossover, and it has a well-established biomedical research scene, often focused on global health and immunology.
New York City is on the list, but it only accounts for 4% overall. This is surprising given that huge property we talked about.
It really underscores how competitive and difficult that market is. It's growing fast as a life science hub, but converting a traditional Manhattan skyscraper into a high-spec lab is incredibly complex and expensive. So it just hasn't reached the volume of Boston or San Francisco yet.
And to round it out, Texas is at 2%, Canada at 1%, and then other at 1%.
Right.
So this heavy concentration, it's almost like it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy for innovation.
That's a great way to put it. By concentrating all this specialized infrastructure in these places, AR is actively making them stickier, more dominant. It creates a network effect,
More labs attract more talent, which attracts more venture capital.
which solidifies the dominance of those top three markets. They are physically cementing the current hierarchy of R&D, and that makes it much harder for other regions to emerge as serious competitors because they just don't have that critical mass of infrastructure.
Okay, let's move on to the tenant ecosystem. This is where we stop talking about square footage and start talking about the actual companies and institutions driving the science inside these buildings. Looking at the list of their largest tenants is like a real-time snapshot of the global life science landscape.
It really is, and it brings up this important question of stability versus disruption. What stands out immediately is the strategic balance RE has created. You have these massive established pharma companies providing a financial bedrock.
All right.
And they're mixed perfectly with the cutting-edge, high-growth biotech firms, and then you have this interesting presence of government and pure tech giants.
Let's go through the top 10, ranked by their percentage of 2024 revenue. It really shows that mix you're talking about.
So tied for the number one spot, each accounting for 4.3% of revenue, are Eli Lilly and Company and Moderna.
That pairing right there is a perfect metaphor for the whole sector. On one hand, you have Eli Lilly, a century-old pharma titan.
Yeah.
They represent stability, scale, long-term R&D.
And then on the other hand, you have Moderna, the disruptive biotech star famous for its mRNA platform and its ability to move incredibly fast. They represent the high-growth, high-value future of biotech.
So just those two, Lilly and Moderna, account for 8.6% of Ares revenue. They're the dual financial anchors.
They absolutely are. And then right behind them, you see other major pharmaceutical players. You have Bristol-Myers Squibb at 3.7%, then Takeda at 2.3%, and Roche at 1.8%.
That's the core of the global pharmaceutical industry right there.
That's the bedrock. These are companies with massive balance sheets, multi-year pipelines, and an absolute non-negotiable need for secure long-term lab leases. They provide the financial security blanket for Ares' entire operation. Even if a dozen smaller companies fail, these high-credit tenants ensure the revenue stream stays incredibly stable.
We also see some key specialized firms on the list. Illumina, Inc. at 1.7% and 2out Bio at 1.6%.
And those are important. Illumina is foundational. They make the gene sequencing technology that basically everyone else on that list uses. Their equipment is highly sensitive, so they need that specialized controlled space.
And 270 Bio.
They're focused on cell therapy. That means they're literally working with living cells. That requires incredibly complex, regulated, high-containment facilities. It's a perfect example of a tenant that absolutely needs the kind of customized infrastructure that RG provides.
But the list gets really interesting when we get to the tech crossover and the government presence.
How?
Alphabet Inc., Google's parent company, is on here. 1.7% of revenue.
This is a critical point. It's a clear sign of the convergence between traditional science and computing. Big tech firms are way past just providing cloud services to biotech.
They're doing their own research.
They're actively engaging in biomedical research, often through subsidiaries focused on longevity or diagnostics or AI-driven drug design. And when Alphabet needs a sophisticated wet lab, they go to the market leader. It's a huge validation of our position,
We also have Cloud Software Group at 1.4%.
which signals that even the software infrastructure providers need to be physically close to their clients in the biotech sector. They need to be part of that ecosystem.
And then we come back to that point about dependency, but now we see it quantified. The United States government is listed as a major tenant, 1.4% of 2024 revenue.
This is such a crucial detail. It's not just that federal funding affects their other tenants. The government itself is one of their biggest customers.
So what kind of space is the government leasing from a private REIT?
Generally, these are things like satellite research centers or specialized administrative offices for agencies like the NIH, the CDC, or even research units for the Department of Defense. They lease this space in Boston or San Diego for the exact same reason commercial companies do.
They want their own researchers to be close to the academic partners and the private sector talent.
Exactly. So R is effectively providing the infrastructure for federal research to be carried out in these premier locations. It makes them an indispensable part of the public research apparatus.
And I have to imagine that having the U.S. government as a tenant, even for just 1.4%, provides enormous financial stability.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. government is considered the gold standard of credit risk. A lease signed by the government is long-term, it's secure, and the risk of default is basically zero. It stabilizes their whole debt profile and helps them get financing at better rates. It's a very, very smart partnership for RE.
So when you look at the whole mix, that strategy of having the big, stable pharma companies alongside the disruptive biotech firms seems fundamental.
It's the key takeaway. They have the bedrock from companies like Lilly and Bristol-Myers Squibb, which minimizes their risk. But then they have the exposure to massive growth from firms like Moderna. It ensures their revenue is resilient no matter what stage of the drug discovery life cycle is currently in favor.
All right, let's pivot to the company's origins. Understanding the history really helps you appreciate the vision it took to create this specialized niche. What, over 30 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
This was not an obvious market back in the early 90s.
Not at all. The origin story is one of incredible foresight. The idea was actually born in 1993, which was really early to commit an entire company solely to biotech infrastructure.
And it started with a business plan.
It started with a business plan titled Bioproperties Management Group, Inc. It was written by a man named Kendall R. Lang.
And the plan was specific from day one.
Highly specific. The goal was to form a real estate investment trust dedicated solely to funding and managing biotech properties. Lang really saw the coming wave of specialization in research long before the big boom hit.
So he had the idea and the initial team.
Right. The initial management team was supposed to be Lang, Alan Gold, Gary Kreitzer, and Stephen Stone. They were the industry pioneers who understood what these early biotech firms actually needed in a building. But, they needed capital.
And that's where Jacobs Engineering Group comes in?
Exactly. The plan was presented to Jerry M. Sudarsky, who was a partner at Jacobs, a huge engineering firm. And Jacobs provided that crucial initial investment, $5 million, to get the venture off the ground.
And with that investment came Joel S. Marcus.
Yes. To protect their investment and oversee the management team, Jacobs brought in Joel Marcus. He was a lawyer and a CPA with deep experience in finance and corporate structuring. He was there to represent Jacobs' interests, and ultimately, he became the foundational executive.
So the official founders are listed as Joel Marcus and Jerry Sudarsky. It's that classic combination of industry vision, corporate backing, and executive leadership.
That's the perfect summary. You have Lang's team with the on-the-ground expertise, Sudarsky and Jacobs with the capital, and Marcus with the financial and legal leadership to actually structure this complex new type of REIT.
And they got to work right away. The first purchase was in San Diego.
It was 4 buildings in that key hub of San Diego. And the sources note that deal was specifically negotiated and structured by Kendall Lang. So they put that core strategy go to a proven biotech cluster into practice from day one.
That initial foundation set the stage for really rapid growth. By 1997, they went public.
They did. They had an initial public offering, an IPO, and raised $155 million. And that IPO was really the inflection point.
It gave them the capital they needed to scale up.
It gave them access to the huge pools of public equity they needed to fund that aggressive expansion into Boston and San Francisco. Without that capital, they never could have built the dominant position that we see today.
So let's fast forward to today. Let's look at the financial snapshot from the 2024 data to really grasp the modern scale of this operation.
These numbers really define the sheer size of what they've built. In 2024, they reported revenue of $3.116 billion. But like we said before, it's the assets that really tell the story.
Their total assets stand at $37.527 billion.
Almost $38 billion. That is the physical manifestation of their three-decade bet on life science, a massive investment in highly specialized, very expensive infrastructure.
And their total equity is listed at $17.889 billion.
Right. These figures show that the financial markets view R as a cornerstone investment. It's a stable holder of critical physical infrastructure designed to generate long-term income. It's exactly what institutional portfolios look for.
But there's another detail in here about their ownership that I found fascinating. It connects R to a whole different level of global finance.
You're talking about Norges Bank.
Yes. Norges Bank, which is the central bank of Norway, owns 9.54% of the company.
That is a colossal stake. For context, Norges Bank manages Norway's sovereign wealth fund. It's the largest in the world, financed by the country's oil and gas revenues, and its whole purpose is to preserve wealth for future generations.
So the significance of them owning almost 10% of R is...
It's immense. It means the nation of Norway is placing a massive long-term strategic bet on the stability and growth of specialized American life science infrastructure.
So why would a sovereign wealth fund, with an almost infinite investment horizon, pick a specialized REIT like this?
For all the reasons we've been discussing. Stability and inflation resistance. Life science real estate is seen globally as an essential asset class, almost like a utility. The long-term leases with high credit tenants like Eli Lilly and the U.S. government make the cash flow incredibly predictable.
And the buildings themselves are a hedge against inflation.
A fantastic hedge because those highly specialized labs are nearly impossible to replicate quickly or cheaply.
So they see this niche as a foundational piece of the future global economy.
Absolutely. It's global confirmation that this isn't just a property management business. It's seen as essential financial infrastructure. It's a validation that the physical framework of future medicine is one of the safest long-term bets in finance. Global capital is lining up to get a piece of that physical landscape of discovery.
So let's bring this all together. Let's consolidate these findings for you, our listener. This deep dive really reveals that Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Inc. is fundamentally changing how we should think about the financing and the location of scientific discovery.
It's so much more than a landlord. It's a critical, highly specific financial vehicle that is fueling the growth of life science. It does that by placing these high-spec labs with all the complex HVAC and power systems we talked about exactly where the talent is.
Right. Reinforcing those existing global hubs in Boston, San Francisco, and San Diego.
And their whole financial engine runs on that dual anchor strategy. You have the stability of big pharma like Eli Lilly, balanced by the high-growth dynamism of firms like Moderna, and now even the convergence of tech giants like Alphabet.
And that heavy concentration, 73% of their revenue in just 3 markets. That's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a reflection of the strategy that density is what drives discovery.
And because of that, the success of this single REIT, with its nearly $38 billion in specialized assets, is directly tied to global biotech trends, the cost of labor in 3 specific coastal cities, and critically to public policy, to the federal research budget.
So it's a unique, concrete indicator for the physical future of biomedical research. Specialized real estate has become this prized strategic asset for even the world's largest sovereign wealth fund.
Like Norges Bank, yeah.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider as you wrap up this deep dive.
Given that the U.S. government is one of ARRE's top tenants, and that the company is explicitly dependent on federal research funding for its overall stability, consider this. How will the increasing privatization and consolidation of the physical infrastructure for science affect the government's own capacity in the future? I mean, if all the premier high-spec labs are owned by a single profit-driven entity, how tightly interwoven does the future of private scientific infrastructure become with the political decisions made about public research budgets? And what happens if that partnership, for whatever reason, falters?
It's a foundational partnership between private real estate investors and public science funding.
Yeah.
And that partnership is what's defining the physical landscape of discovery today. The science is only as strong as the foundation is built on.
And in this case, that foundation is defined by $37 billion worth of specialized, strategically placed laboratories.